All right. Welcome everyone to the January Sunroom Masterclass, 5 Hard Truths About Homeschooling and How to Bloom Anyway. I'm glad that you are here. We have a couple people live in the call, and then most of you I know will watch this recorded. So I'm glad that you're taking the time to do this. This is um, some content that's been on my heart a long while, and I couldn't figure out how to share it. And then this idea came to me to just tell it like it is. And so that's what I'm going to try to do today. Before we dive into that content, though, of course, let's begin in prayer. And today I especially just want to pray a memorare to ask for our Blessed Mother's intercession for this time together, for the inspiration and to help us in our vocations. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Remember, most gracious Virgin Mary, that never was it known that anyone who fled to thy protection, implored thy help, or sought thine intercession was left unaided. Inspired by this confidence, we fly unto thee, O Virgin of Virgins, our Mother. To thee we come, before thee we stand, sinful and sorrowful. O Mother of the Word incarnate, despise not our petition, but in thy mercy hear and answer us. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, thank you. That's one of my favorite prayers to squeeze in wherever I can. I feel like there's a lot of power there in that memorare prayer. So let me make sure I let in everybody that's waiting, since I am a one-woman show. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see the presentation part. There we go. I'll try to keep my chat going too. For today's masterclass, there is a handout available to you. And oh, I meant to put that in the chat for those who are here live but don't have access to that. Hold on. See, definitely forgot something. I'll have to stop sharing to grab that for you. Let me grab that link. Go back to normal. Stand by. So if you remember the sunroom, if you are a member of the Sunroom, then you get a master class every month, and we keep those in archive with the handouts that go along with them for download and viewing at any time. So when you miss something or you want to go back and review something later on, it's all there for you. And this, now I have it, I'm coming back to you. Here in the chat, and I'll send this by email too for those of you who need it, is not a goal setting bullet journal. Long story, I have lots of tech issues. I lost what I was doing and tried to resave it, and that didn't work. And so it's got a funky name. But this is the handout that goes along with what we're doing today. And I'm going to come back to my share screen now so that you can see that. Yes. Okay. So if you need that handout and you're here on the call live, it is in the chat. But if you are watching this recording, you should have received this by email. And so that's just a place to take notes, a place to remember what is happening or what it was about. If you need to go back and look at the highlights to trigger your memory at some point down the road, then that handout is available to you. But our topic today is 5 Hard Truths About Homeschooling and How to Bloom Anyway. And as I was saying, this is kind of a compilation of some of the core beliefs that I have about homeschooling, which is that it's really hard, it's really worth it. And there's so much beauty to be found in homeschooling that we can choose to embrace or not. Our Sunroom Masterclasses happen every month. Our consultants, right now it's myself, Amy, and Stacy. We take turns presenting on some topic relating to homeschooling that would be beneficial for homeschooling moms in the Sunroom membership. We've done things like meal planning, multicultural studies. Stacy is doing an upcoming one on literary tea times. We've done morning basket, we've done Lent and Advent, we've done making your homeschool Catholic. We've got lots of topics of masterclasses in the Sunroom archives if you are interested in that. The Sunroom itself Beyond including those monthly master classes, also includes weekly live calls where we gather for prayer to work on accountability. And the consultants join those calls to provide encouragement, troubleshooting, and inspiration for our members. And they meet at different times it's a different time each week so that it's more likely that you're able to make several every month, if not weekly. So if you want to learn more about the Sunroom, you can go to bloomhomeschooling.com and click on group consulting. But I wanted to just put that up front since we invited non-members to this particular masterclass, and then this recording will be posted later. I wanted you to know kind of what you're getting into here. So we have a few of our current Sunroom members in the call, and they are used to coming in and listening to this, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end and help with sharing kind of our own experiences. But as we go through these 5 hard truths, if you do have questions for me or wondering about something I've said or clarification or ideas, drop those in the chat and I will try to keep an eye on that, but also I'll definitely go back and review those at the end so that I can make sure to address whatever comment or question that you have at that time. So the first thing I want to say about these 5 hard truths before I share what they are, although the handout says what they are, but we dive into them, is yes, homeschooling is hard. And yes, homeschooling is full of many challenges. But I want to say a word about dreams and ideals. It's when we start homeschooling, we make this decision not lightly, right? So this is a really big decision for our family. And usually our heart is full of a lot of hopes, a lot of dreams, a lot of goals, and a lot of ideals. And especially as we start researching and getting to know homeschooling and homeschoolers, we see bits and pieces of things that we want for our homeschool. And even if for those of us who have been doing this for a while, we look around and we dream and we hope and we think about the ideal of what we would like our homeschool to be. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. And I want to say that at the outset here. Dreams and ideals are important. They are important because they indicate a desire to make progress, a desire for growth. And while we often, especially in our day-to-day duties and our day-to-day grind, have to let go of some of those dreams and ideals or even misplace them for a while, we should always come back to those and examine those. Because dreams and ideals are going to evolve as we get to know ourselves, as we get to know our children, as we get to know homeschooling and just life in general and the experiences and situations we find ourselves in. But we should always have them and we should not let go of them. So I don't want the rest of what I'm going to share I don't want that detail to get lost with kind of some of the challenges and the struggles that we're going to talk about today. Because I am going to talk about making it real. I'm going to talk about the hard stuff. And we want to keep the dreams and ideals in mind so that we don't lose hope. Obviously, the ultimate dream, the ultimate ideal, and the ultimate hope is to get to heaven and to take all these people that we're with, take them with us, right? That's the ultimate ideal. And that should be our goal every day. But the goals for the here and now, the dreams for the here and now are just as valuable. And I want you to hold on to those. Okay. All right. You're going to find that a lot of the hard truths and acceptance of them and blooming into them rely on a perspective shift. They rely on kind of that mindset shift that a lot of people talk about. And I think that perspective is gained, of course, through time and experience. And that's how wisdom grows. But even if you're just starting out, even if you're just starting out in your journey of homeschooling, I believe that you can take these truths and that you can embrace them and lean into them and really bloom and really thrive as a homeschooling family, in particular, you as a homeschooling mom, because you're pretty amazing for even being here. So the first hard truth is that the benefits create the challenges. Obviously, we all chose to homeschool for a particular reason. For many reasons, we might have a whole list or just a few. We might have experience. experiences that led us here, and we look to the benefits, right? We look at this will be a better situation for our family because of XYZ. And you could probably list those out for your own family. They're so different for everybody that I won't, get into specifics. And we get excited. We think, oh, I'm going to get to be with my children. I'm going to get to, enjoy education with them and learning with them. But we have to be real and accept that those benefits and the facts that those benefits are actually create their own challenges. For example, we're together a lot, and that's amazing. It's very hard for me to imagine having homeschooled all four of my children all their lives to put them in a school and send them away from me. I'm sure I could do it if that's what we discerned, but I love being together. I love being with them and knowing where they are and what they're doing. But oh my goodness, I never get a break, right? We don't get a break from them. We find ways to get breaks um, most of the time, but sometimes that's really hard. And that does create a challenge. They are always with us, for better or for worse. And we're home a lot. What a gift to not have to wake up early and rush everybody out the door and get on the school bus or go out when the weather is awful or when it's a beautiful day and you just rather kind of hang out in your yard. We're home, and that's such a benefit. Being able to create the environment that we want for our kids to learn in, that's very nurturing and supportive, right? But we're home, which means that we make a mess more, and those kids have to eat when they're home, and so we have to do all that meal prep. We're home, and there are other things that are always needing to be done because we are at home, but we're homeschooling at the same time, or maybe we're separating the time out, but whatever works for you. But that creates its own challenges by being home all the time. Your kids are making messes all the time. We can make our own schedule, and that is a huge benefit of homeschooling. You can decide what activities you go to and don't go to. You have, when you want to school, when you don't want to school, take off time, school in the evenings and weekends. If you have to work, you can make your own schedule. But guess who keeps you on that schedule? Just you. It's mom, right? It's mom and dad or the family. But we can make our own schedule, but there's no boss to tell us to do it. And that is a challenge that is created, among others, by having that flexibility. It's much harder to be accountable and consistent. It's just a challenge. We can cater to our children's needs. And this is probably a huge benefit for many homeschooling families, right? Your kid might be a few levels ahead, a few levels behind. Your kid might have a particular interest or gift that you want to pursue. They might be struggling and you want to kind of slow things down for them. That's amazing. You can do that. That's a benefit of homeschooling. The challenge is that usually requires more work on your part as the teacher, right? You have to adapt things. You have to research what's going to work best. And you can't just trust that whatever book is in front of them will work perfectly. If your goal is to cater to their needs, right? So that's a benefit that many families embrace. We can limit their exposure. This is important. I know as Catholic families, our cultures become pretty depraved in many ways. And of course, there's a lot of evil out there, a lot of incorrect teaching, and so forth. And if we want family and faith to be the priority, we can limit their exposure to things like that by keeping them home and homeschooling them. We can even choose their friends and, choose their activities. But guess what? The challenge is we have to make the effort to choose the activities, choose the friends, screen the things that we're not sure if we should let them do or not. Because now we've taken big that big benefit and we see the real challenges that can make, especially in many areas there aren't a ton of homeschoolers, so it's hard to connect with other homeschoolers, right? And your friends that you might have had when your kids were in school, if you pulled them from school, their schedules are now totally different than yours, and so it's hard to get together. So there are challenges in that benefit of limiting their exposure. But as I said, for every hard truth that I'm going to share, I'm going to tell you what's I've seen and experienced firsthand makes it work anyway. And for this, it is that we embrace the benefits and embrace the challenges. We just have to realize, yes, I get to do this. This is a benefit I want for my kid, but that means that I have to face this hard thing and I have to figure out how to make that work for us. And even just that shift in our perspective, I have found makes all the difference in motivation for myself and being able to tackle that challenge and overcome that challenge. And it's a constant ebb and flow, right? Because the challenges present themselves in various seasons in various ways with various kids. And I have to constantly remind myself I'm homeschooling because I want this benefit. That means I need to be responsible for it. And so that's the last thing on this is to remember your why. And so if you're a note taker and there's nothing else you write down these calls, is write on this call, write down the bloom factors to embrace the benefits, to embrace the challenges, and remember your why, meaning why are you homeschooling? What is it you want to accomplish? What are your goals and ideals and dreams for your family and your vocation? I really encourage moms to write this down and then every year to reevaluate it and to just remind yourself of what your why is, maybe revise it a little bit because our reasons change, but don't ever lose sight of why you are homeschooling because that really does help all the challenges seem okay, seems slightly more surmountable. I don't want to say the challenges don't seem like challenges because they are and they do. But remembering these things can really help shift our perspective to embrace that. Number two is that we accept full responsibility. I have a friend from college who called this emotional responsibility. Um, what I mean by that is we're accepting full responsibility for our children, right? We're homeschooling them and parenting them. And even if we choose to outsource some classes or get them involved in some activities where there are other adults in their lives, which is a good, worthy thing, it's still our responsibility to make those choices and to do all those things and to keep everything going. And as moms, this often falls to us. So that emotional responsibility, even if we're really good at kind of getting all this stuff done, it's a weight on our shoulders and our soul. Because ideally, with the support of our husbands, I know that's not always the case, but hopefully, together, we are making decisions, lots of decisions all the time. What are the kids going to wear? What are they going to eat? What school are we going to do today? What are we not going to do? Where are we going to go? And we create the plan for their education in general, or the meal plan, or the family schedule for the week. We usually are the ones together, hopefully, figuring that out. And that's a responsibility. Then once we've created the plan, it's our responsibility to keep everyone on track. I find this the hardest. All these people with their different opinions and preferences, and I've got to just keep the train going. It's one of the things we work on in the sunroom, right? Those of you who are there, keep everyone on track. We keep moving forward. We try to stick to the plan. We modify the plan when we need to. It's our responsibility. We solve the problems. They inevitably come up. If they're little problems, we take care of those. If they're bigger problems, then we prayerfully discern those with our husbands. But it's a responsibility that comes with parenting in general, right? But with homeschooling in a more specific way because they're with us all the time and we're responsible for all the things. And there's not a staff there to help us, right? Or a structure like a school environment would be there to help us. And we do the work. If it gets done or not, it's kind of up to us. We'd like to say it's up to our teenagers at that point, and in some ways it can be, but in the end, are we checking in with them? Are there consequences that they aren't getting it done? Are we making them aware of what needs to be done? That part's our work. And it's big, right? It's a burden. So how do we deal with that? Oh my gosh, it's all up to me feeling. Rely heavily on God. I mean, you could have guessed that one, right? God is the answer for all of these, really. And He is the only way that we can thrive and bloom in this situation, in this vocation. But I think here, most especially when we feel the weight of the world on our shoulders, we have to remember that he's the one that should be carrying that for us and turn it over to him. A lot of times it's super important to remember that we need to be taking care of ourselves, right? I know it's one more thing, but we're going to enter this January right now, and February is known as a big burnout month for homeschoolers. We feel like we want to quit. We look at enrolling them in school for next year, sometimes for valid reasons that we really do need to discern that choice, right? But a lot of times it's just because we never really recovered from the holidays, or because we are trying to do too much, or we are trying to carry that responsibility and we're getting stuck there in that
Another thing that I just realized,
worry
oh, that was
and
starting up, so maybe I
anxiety.
would
Um,
pop in. I don't actually know when it started.
Maureen, can you go ahead and mute? Let's
Um,
see where you
when
are.
did it start? I don't know. I sign up for these things and I usually don't watch them or I just
Okay, hold on.
see
Let me
the
see if I can
videos.
get her muted.
Yeah.
Participant.
So
Mute. Okay. Sorry about that. Welcome, and we're glad that you're here. Okay. So, taking care of yourself, mamas, is one of the ways to make that responsibility feel less like a burden and to feel more like a privilege, which is my next thing. When I mean take care of yourself, I'm going to say that very broadly because it means different things to different moms. Homeschool moms rarely get a chance for that spa day or whatever that, a lot of people rely on. But that being said, there are things that we can do to help ourselves, both physically, spiritually, things like sleeping when we can and not staying up too late and eating breakfast and little things, getting outside, getting sunlight that we can do to take care of ourselves if we know that we need some nourishment, right? And then also, as I said, this is a lot of mindset, right? This is a lot of perspective. Delight in the privilege of being responsible for all these things. This is a gift, right? Once you make the decision to homeschool, and every year you're making that decision technically, like we're going to continue doing this, we're not, moving to a different way, realizing that there are a lot of gifts that come along with that. And I think that I know one of our members is right now, one of her goals is writing down the things she's grateful for each day. And you know, there's a lot of value in identifying our blessings, being thankful for the things that we have. And that can take this responsibility and turn it into something more tolerable, more beautiful. Kind of instead of that weight of the world on our shoulders, it's more of this is a privilege. I get to do all these things. Not I have to do all these things, which we'll talk about that in a minute. But I get to do all these things. I get to make all the decisions for my family. I get to guide us and keep us on track. I get to help them solve their problems and lead them, to a better place and to delight in that and take that perspective change. But as I said, we need to talk about the fact that we cannot do it all. We might be responsible for all these different things, but we cannot do it all. You cannot do it all. I cannot do it all. Sarah McKinsey has a post called "You Are Not an Airplane," which I read all the time because I still need to remember that. I need to remember I cannot do it all. Another post I read said, "You can't be awesome at everything." You can't. This is a hard truth. You can't be awesome at all the things all the time. You just can't. I know the common phrase is, "You can't have it all," referring to women in careers and things like that. I think you can have a lot. I think you can build a life that you love. I do believe in that. And I think you can, if you're prayerfully discerning what's best, I think you can achieve what you want in life. But we all know that that's going to take some choices and sacrifices because we have to do all these things. Obviously, we're homeschooling, we got to do the schoolwork. Even if you're an unschooler, you have to strew the things. You have to make sure there's opportunities for learning and the environment is conducive to learning. You're choosing the curriculum and you're teaching the lessons and you're planning the lessons and you're grading the lessons. There's a lot to do there. Housework. There's the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and all the things that we have to do to keep a house running, a home going, um, scheduling and taking care of, all the miscellaneous things that have to happen with errands and so forth. It's a lot. And we want to spend time with our family and we want to stay connected with our friends. And some of us have work and hobbies that are important to us. We need to take time for leisure and rest where we're not doing all these other things, but that's still a thing on the to do list, right? We can't possibly do all of these things really, really well all of the time, right? We can't be awesome at everything in any given moment, season of life. We have to make some choices. And the way we bloom with that hard truth is we decide to neglect something. But the key here is to decide what you're going to neglect. Don't just throw your hands up and say, well, I just can't do it all. And so a lot of it's just not going to get done. It's a better step to decide. Well, mopping would be really great if it happened every week because I have animals and kids, and that would be fantastic. And my kids don't do a great job of sweeping, but they do sweep. But man, mopping, and I'm speaking for myself, is something that I don't do, except if someone's coming to my house or it's been like over a month. So I like to have people to come to my house so that I make sure that I get that chore done at some point. But I decide I'm not doing that. I'm neglecting that for right now. There may be seasons when schoolwork is the thing you have to neglect. Maybe you just had a baby. You're going to need to neglect that schoolwork so that you can take care of that little one, right? Maybe there's a health situation in your family, whether physical or mental. You might need to put a pause on a lot of things to be able to take care of that necessary health issue, right? But to make it be a choice rather than just general neglect is the key to blooming. Another step is to ask for help. Our kids should be doing a lot more than we think, and we have to train them and teach them to do those things, of course. But it is important that we do that because we cannot do it all, and we cannot do it all well. And even if we teach them to do it not so well, then it's something better than nothing, right? We also need to ask our husbands for help if we're able. Ask family, friends. If you are in a situation where you are working or volunteering and you just need some time, some space, we need to be okay with asking for help. As homeschooling moms, we tend to be super strong women, right? We have determined and we're making decisions to educate our kids at home and go against the norm. It's really hard for us to ask for help, but it is something that we need to do periodically, and definitely train our kids to help us as they're able. My husband and I have kind of a rule because I tend to say yes to a lot of things. I'm an extrovert and I like to do all the things and go all the places. And our rule is that we don't add something to the family schedule, to my plate, unless what we're already doing, we're doing well. So out of the things that you are doing, do what you do well, right? You can't do it all. You can't be awesome at everything, but do what you do well with intention and the best that you can. A lot of people would say this is simplifying because you're doing less. Okay. Simplifying right now has a interesting vibe to it, and I'm not sure it's entirely accurate. But do what you do well. Do the schoolwork well. It's better to do 3 subjects well than 10 not well in most circumstances. But we can't forget that a hard truth is that we teach children. Children, even though they are 17 years old, they're still children. They do not know all the things. In fact, they know nothing when we get them. They don't know how to walk. They don't know how to eat. They don't know how to talk. They don't know how to do algebra. They don't know how to read. They don't know how to talk to other people. They know nothing. And it is beyond frustrating sometimes when we expect something that we've taught one time or explained one time to be remembered and to be done that way, right? And I'm speaking for when they get a little older. Hopefully, we're not getting too frustrated with a small child for not remembering right away. But the reality is, they are children and they are growing and learning, and they don't know the things that they don't know. It's hard. They react instinctively and their behavior can seem out of nowhere, off the wall, because they're children. They don't have the self-control, they don't have the virtue yet to be able to act appropriately or to react in a better way. Sometimes their instincts are good, but a lot of times they're very childlike in a negative way, right? There can be a good childlike, but they react, right? Because they're at varied ages and stages. And this is because we have the benefit of having all ages in our school at the same time. We get to see this, and it comes with its own challenge. They're not the same age, and they're not at the same developmental stage. And we need to kind of be aware of that to survive this. They are each unique, which means that even if they are the same age, they're not going to do things the same way. They probably aren't going to learn the same way. They're not going to be interested in the same things. They have different struggles and strengths compared to each of our other children at that particular age and stage of development. And I joke all the time that it would be fantastic if once you figured out how to do things with your oldest child, that you could just do it the same way with all the other children, right? But does that work? No, it does not. They're all very unique. And that's a hard truth. But we need to embrace that too. In Sarah Mackenzie's book, Teaching from Rest, she spends some time talking about how relationships are inefficient. And I love this reminder that they're children and we are their mothers. And the most important thing above everything else is our relationship with them as they grow and leading them through that relationship to Christ. And that takes time and attention and energy and doesn't happen in a formulaic, scripted way. It's different with each kid. It can be exhausting with some, it can be easy with some. But in general, building that relationship and maintaining a positive relationship through all 18 years of their at-home life and even beyond, it's inefficient and it's not going to be done in the way that we can just check it off, right? That's hard to remember. So how do we bloom anyway? Even though they're just children and have no clue? Teach them. Look at every situation as a learning opportunity. They do something that makes you angry, think, how can I teach them to do that differently? Right? They're frustrated and not being able to grasp a concept or get through something that you think they should already have figured out. Teach them. This takes effort and time because you may have to find a different way to teach them than you were teaching them, and a different resource or a different approach, or just go outside and teach them because whatever magical things happen when there's fresh air. But we bloom when we look at it as a teaching opportunity. Anything that's frustrating, anything that's irritating, look at it as a teaching opportunity because they're children. They're just children. And you can get better at this part by learning about who they are. Now, this is amazing as they get older, right? When they're little, they have tendencies and you start to see how they're different in those infuriating ways that every single child is unique. But as they get older, it's fascinating to see what their preferences are, what their personalities are, and what works with them. Pay attention to this. This is how we bloom. This is how we embrace that these are children that we are raising and teaching. Because most importantly, we are their mom, right? A lot of new homeschoolers say, how do you balance between being their mom and being their teacher? You're their mom above all else, right? And you're their mom at the same time as you're being their teacher. I don't believe you can separate the two and put on different hats. You are first and foremost their mom, and you need to be their mom and embrace that relationship, which is supposed to be nurturing and caring and providing for their basic needs and providing for all their needs, really, right? In conjunction with your husband, of course. So remember that that's your priority. And a lot of the irritating things and the hard things that happen because they're just children are easier to handle. Finally, number 5, we must choose our hard. Now, this one, the most obvious, explanation to share with you is that, we can decide to put our kids in, let's say, public school, or we can homeschool them. There's hard things about both of those, right? But we are making a choice, and we have chosen the homeschooling. If you're here on the call, probably. Yes. The consultants and I use this phrase a lot, choose your hard, when we're talking and debating about different curriculum to recommend for different types of learners. And we say that because a lot of us would really like the easy option, right? I would like the easy option. But sometimes the easy on mom option doesn't actually teach a particular child well. And so in that circumstance, choosing our hard is, I'm going to choose to do the hard thing and spend more time teaching this child this thing rather than let them flounder. Because it's pretty hard to watch them flounder, and I don't want them to flounder, and I'm supposed to teach them, right? We're choosing our hard in that circumstance. So it's hard to be home. It's hard to be at home day in, day out. Some of us who are extroverts would like to go out more. Those introverts, I envy you. A homeschooling introvert seems to me the best thing ever, but I've learned to love it. But it's still hard to be at home. It's hard to not have interaction with the outside world, to not have the affirmation and praise that would come with some kind of outside exposure, right? But we're choosing that hard because, back to number one, because there are those benefits, right, that we want to embrace. It's hard to do the work. We had a lot of work to do. Obviously, as I said, we're not going to do it all, but we still have to do it, most of it. It's hard. But what's the alternative if we don't cook dinner? Cold cereal's an option sometimes, but not all the time. If we don't do the laundry, there's no clean clothes to wear. If we don't teach the children, then we are neglecting their education and our responsibility and our vocation. It's hard to do the work, but we're choosing that hard when we choose to homeschool. It's hard to teach. Sometimes you just want to throw the math book across the room. We have the self-control not to do that. Sometimes our children actually do throw the math book across the room. It's hard to teach, but I'm choosing to teach. Now, I can choose to outsource something and have someone else teach it, and that's fine. I'm going to choose that. I lose a little bit of the control there, right? I lose a little bit of the maybe the pacing or the content if it's not a class or something, either outside the home or online. But I'm choosing that, right? That's a choice. It's hard to be responsible. All those things we talked about earlier that we are responsible for. That's a heavy weight, a heavy burden to have that emotional responsibility on us. Some of that is thrust upon us because we have children, but let's face it, we chose to stay home with our kids. We chose with our husband to have kids. It's a hard choice. We chose our hard. We're now responsible for these beautiful souls that God's entrusted to us. And it's hard to parent them. It's hard to parent them. It's hard to teach them the things they need to know, to guide them and discipline them and help them to be productive, competent, virtuous members of society, right? But what's the alternative? And I said that a little early, but that's how we bloom with all these hard things that we have to choose. We pray a lot because a lot of it involves making decisions. We're doing it on time. Okay. We pray a lot. And if you are not in a season where you can stop and pray quietly for even 5 minutes, then this looks like keeping God in the back of your mind all day long, right? And having little chit chat with him as you're going to and fro. Pray a lot. It helps make the hard more manageable, and it helps make it clearer to see which hard is the right one for your path. I don't think any of us would say that being a mother, homeschooling in particular, marriage is easy, because it all requires virtue, which requires growth, because we're on the path towards holiness, right? This is a hard path. The church teaches that the path to holiness is not an easy path. And if we expect that, then we're going to be disappointed. So we need to pray and help the Holy Spirit to meter our expectations so that they're more realistic. As I was mentioning, we need to consider the alternative. So we have this hard thing in front of us and we're frustrated. And sometimes we're just like, I don't want to do that. That's hard. What's the alternative? Sometimes we don't stop to think about that. We think we made this decision to do this and it's really hard and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to avoid it or I'm going to do it poorly, just like our kids do sometimes, right? But what's the alternative to not doing that? What's my other choice? What's my other option? And really consider that. But more importantly, um, is once that decision is made to do whatever it is with love. The saints speak about this, especially Saint Therese, Saint Teresa of Calcutta. Do all these small things with love. Do all these hard things with love. Because yeah, it's a lot. It's hard. It's a lot of responsibility. But when we take the perspective that pouring all of this energy into our children, into our families through homeschooling is our way of loving them, is part of our vocation, then it doesn't seem as burdensome and it doesn't seem as hard. But you and I both know we go through our days and there's so much going on that we don't pause often to think of these concepts. And on each one of these slides that has said bloom, these are the things that I try to carry with me, and they make this doable. They make it enjoyable even in really tough seasons. So one of the things I really encourage moms to do, even though it's super, super hard with all of my ministry work, is to take the time to pause and remember these important things. That you're doing all this with love, that this is your responsibility because it's your God-given vocation and because you've chosen this path of homeschooling because it has the benefits that may be better than the other path that you've not chosen. And when we think about that, we're like, yeah, oh yeah, of course I have to fold the towels because they have to be folded and it's my responsibility. And, I need to just get up and do it. Because this is my path to growth. This is my path to virtue. It's hard. These hard truths were kind of my way to flip to the other side of things, right? Because a lot of times we get caught up, and it's just natural, in the what's hard, what's a challenge, what are we struggling with? But it's so worth it. And I really do believe that homeschoolers have this unique situation and opportunity on a daily basis to grow in virtue and to really capture the domestic church, to minister to our children and lead them to Christ by modeling God's love for them every day. And it's worth it when we see them thrive, when we see them smile, when we hear the accolades or the success stories later in life that they enjoy. It's worth it when they tell you that story. It's worth it when they give you that hug or that special rock that they found at the playground. Because that's their sign of love back to you, right? It is hard to homeschool. There are so many hard things about homeschooling, but it's very, very worth it. It really is in the end. I'm 16 years in, 8 years to go, holding my breath. Graduated 2, I have 2 still in my homeschool, and I love it. Even though we have had some really hard seasons, and the season we're in now isn't great. Where there's some struggles going on that I'm trying to figure it out. I was telling someone I spend half my days figuring out how to homeschool, and then half my days teaching others how to homeschool. Because we're always going to face challenges, and these hard truths are always going to be present. But there's beauty, and I want us not to lose sight of that, and that's why I do what I do here in the Sunroom. And I'm super grateful that you took the time to listen to this. I know it was one of my longer master classes, but it was really important to me to share these things because this is my passion. This is what I want you to remember, is how beautiful this gift of homeschooling is. Just as a quick summary for those of you who are not currently members of the Sunroom and are either joining us live here or watching this recording, Heart of a Mother is my online Catholic homeschooling support ministry and business, and you can find me at heartofamother.net. The website itself isn't great right now, For a while, it was a blog. For a while, I had printables, but I've really, really enjoyed working with homeschoolers, and particularly homeschool moms are my passion. And so here we've created a place in the sunroom that I think mimics this little porch scene, kind of an enclosed porch with big windows where the sun can pour in and we can sit around with our tea or coffee. I have my tea here. Uh, in the sunroom, we do have these monthly master classes, but then we also meet once a week at varying times. So hopefully a time that works for your schedule every so often. And we just gather for prayer and encouragement, accountability, inspiration, troubleshooting. And it's become just a really special place. So if you are a sunroom member, I just want to tell you how grateful I am that you are here with us in this special place. If you are interested in homeschooling support, um, there's information about the sunroom at bloomhomeschooling.com under group consulting. Our consultants, as I mentioned earlier, myself, Amy, and Stacy also offer one-on-one consulting calls, either a one-time call or a series of calls, whatever you need. And our goal is to help you homeschool. We want to help you bloom as a homeschooling mom, embrace all of these challenges, but also to do a good job, right, at teaching our children and guiding them um, into their adulthood. So we have lots of experience with a variety of homeschooling curriculums and teaching strategies and approaches. We talk about scheduling and habits and all the things. Anything you could imagine is kind of our specialty, and we are glad to speak with you whenever. So that being said, let me stop sharing and pull up the chat and the rest of you. And I would love to know if you have any questions or comments before we close. Thank you, Megan, for being here. I totally get it. Brilliant to have them eating while you watch this so that you can kind of concentrate a little. Does anyone have any questions regarding anything I've said, or does anything in particular just jump out and resonate with you that you needed to hear today? If you want to share that in the chat or let us know, I would love to hear kind of maybe which hard truth you needed to hear or which hard truth you love the most. Doesn't that sound awful? But we have to embrace these things as truths, right? So if you've got any thoughts on that, let me know. I also want to give you a little bit of homework. Is that awful? It's not homework, I promise. Um, just something to think about and to ponder. As I said, I really love to encourage moms to pause and think, even if it's while you're doing dishes and folding laundry and changing diapers and waiting for the child to do the math problem. But find space from time to time to think about the like big picture things, to think about the meaningful things, because we just get caught up in, we have to feed them and bathe them and teach them and take them here and there and, you know, take texts from them and answer them when they're in college and still need your help, right? Um, so your homework, if that's what we can call it, is to think about over the next couple of hours after watching this is what's something hard you did well this week, and celebrate that. What's something hard that you did well this week? Because we all faced something hard. And how did you tackle that? And I just want to say that when you think on that, and you might identify more than one thing, that's fabulous. Of course, there's lots of things in our lives that are hard. But when you identify that thing that you did well, that was hard, but you did it, I want you to give yourself a pat on the back and say, I did that thing. And it was hard, but I did it. And I personally want to say, mamas, good job. Well done. That's what this is all about. And I'm so proud of you. And I knew you could do it. And rest in that. Rest that you did that hard thing and you did it well. You're good. So spend a little bit of time thinking about that. And continue to think about these 5 hard truths. I am always available for questions here in the sunroom through Bloom Consulting. And I also have a chat feature on my website. So if you ever have just a real quick question that you want to ask, you can come online. It's afternoons and evenings, and you can see if that chat option is available. And I'm happy to help you homeschool. God bless everybody.